corner when I'm not presenting.
Listening in.
And listen in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bash University Live here on Tuesday night.
Take a quick break. Watch John Cruz's on the Tokyo rig.
Be a part of the show. Get some chances to win some awesome prizes.
Just Bash You Go. You know, we didn't have that back then. And dude, it could just...
That text thread gives me so much energy. I mean, like I'm dialed.
Welcome to Bash University Live. Good to have you guys with us. Going to be a great show tonight. We've got a really cool topic, I think. We're going to be fishing in a crowd. How many of you guys dealt with that in your body of water? I don't care. Texas, Florida, you know what it's like. Up in our part of the country, it gets jammed in some of these little bodies of water. Well, we just fished the Bassmaster Open. All of us, well, at least 4 of us are going to be on the air tonight. And we were fishing amongst a bunch of people. At least I was. And I'm looking forward to talking to the other guys tonight. We're going to have Mike on with us. Ike's going to be here. And we also have Kobe Krieger, who was fishing with me. We were fishing in basically the same space. And he did really well in the tournament. He really outfished the field, myself included, in that little area. So I'm looking forward to talking to him, how he survived it, and I want to talk about how we dealt with all that pressure in the area, pressure on the fish, pressure with finding a good place on the bank, how to manage all that and come up with strategies to be successful. So that's what's going on tonight, guys. As always, we got a ton of great stuff that's going to be happening tonight. We got lots of prizes, lots of giveaways. So love that you guys are with us at bashu.tv. Get yourself over and get subscribed. It's going to help you be a better angler. I promise you. We've got amazing teaching content that is constantly being delivered every single week at Bash University, including some fishing that we just did with GDP last week. How are you, man?
We did. I'm doing well, Pete. Thanks for asking. It's last week was pretty special, to
It
say the
was.
least. And you got to ask Kobe Krieger. The James River is his favorite body of water.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, ask him about it. He'll tell you all about it.
You're busting my chops.
No, you better ask him.
Well, he might like it better now. We'll ask him. We'll ask him that for sure. But we had some fun with you.
Yeah.
Learning some really, really cool stuff that I'm excited to share with our group is the topwater approach around this time of year. And, man, they were just coming up and smashing it for us.
They were, not giving away too much here, but, man, it's a very overlooked technique this time of year.
It is. By me.
Everybody, I feel like. Honestly.
Yeah,
Yep.
Especially after I got the front row seat. That's the beauty part about being the dean is I get the front row seat on some of the amazing teaching and seminars that you really wouldn't hear otherwise. And Riz, too. Riz was.
Yeah, woohoo, Greg, you caught another one. Woo!
It was pretty special.
That is the hardest part of the job is to not pick up a fishing rod while all this is going down,
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
No, it was
Don't think
awesome,
Riz
man.
wasn't itching back there. He got him.
It was that was a really cool shoot to be on.
Yeah,
it was eye-opening in a lot of ways for some techniques that people don't think about for the pre-spawn zone.
Yep. And that was real. I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I think guys are definitely going to appreciate it. But I did notice during that seminar, I looked over at Riz, and he was shaking a little bit, like like withdrawals. Yes. I don't know. He was having a tough time managing.
I can't find a few of my top waters. I wonder where they're at.
I don't know, man.
Finders keepers.
Yeah, I
Just
think
hit my boat.
I think the bass have half of them, man. They couldn't stay off of them.
That's right.
But it's underlooked by me, and it was great working with you. You did a great job.
Thank you.
So if you're struggling to catch bass consistently, you remember those lines?
Certain times of year, certain things can help you. Yes, I do, Pete. I was waiting for Riz to put it out there this week.
Are you struggling?
Inside
Are
joke,
you
guys.
struggling?
How many takes?
Dude, I don't know.
So here's how it goes.
Here, time out.
He nailed it on the first take, like flawless.
Perfect.
First take, and we said, "All right, let's just do another one, so we got one more in the can, right?" Next 15 tries.
Then we finally wrote it down and made it a little easier. I still messed up. You written down.
I know. We had a whiteboard. We had a phone. We had all kinds of.
They came out good though. That's
Yeah.
good stuff, guys. By the way, we have somebody chiming in on the message board already. Mitch Burnt, first time ever watching Bash U Live, just signed up for the program. He's already taken advantage of the 40% off Rapala VIP deal. So welcome, Mitch, and we're happy to have you with us.
Welcome, Rich.
Excellent. Yep. We appreciate that. We got a sight fishing promotion going on with Hobie sunglasses right now, which is awesome. We got a great 30% coupon. We have a Tackle Direct coupon. We have a Bash University hat, and face shield is our promotion for the sight fishing pros. I think I got that right. Go over to bashu.tv and click sign up, and you can see all the promotion stuff right there
On the whiteboard.
And on the whiteboard over here behind me, we are brought to you by Tackle Direct Studios. We love being part of these guys. They are a great tackle store that is catering to the freshwater bass market. We love it. Get over there, get your stuff. Right now, our subscribers get 15% off. We have a coupon. Check your email. We got a lot of great stuff coming through them at Tackle Direct. And we are also, we want to give a big shout out to Hobie Eyewear. We have a Mother's Day promotion going on right now, which is 25% off Hobie Eyewear. Use your code on bashu.tv. Get subscribed, and you get 25% off and a free gift for Mother's Day. Hook her up with a cool pair of Hobie glasses, or I would suggest keep the Hobie glasses for yourself, and then you can give her the free gift. That's my call. But Aquaview is also going on right now. We've been working with Aquaview. We love them. We were filming with them at this most recent shoot. It's eye-opening. It helps you understand what your electronics are teaching you. And our students get 25% off Aquaview. So go.
Oh, really?
Yep. Go over to Pro Member Offers. That's happening. That's just brand new. Brand new, guys. Go
That's
check
a lot
it
of
out
percent.
on the members' offers. As well as the Rapala VIP program. You guys all have access to that. And courtesy of Kobe Krieger, we have some amazing prizes. Riz, what do we got going on?
Yeah, as always, we got a couple giveaways going on. We got a grand prize going out the door tonight. That's a $100 prize pack from V&M Baits. Awesome of Kobe Krieger to provide us with those. We're super stoked to be giving those out. And also, there's a Facebook like and share going on as well. So if you're watching over on the Facebook side of things, guys, like and share tonight's feed. You'll be entered in for a chance to win a $50 V&M Baits prize pack. And, guys, if you're on the fence about signing up, now's a great time to do it. Just head over to bashu.tv. Use the code BULive30. Try the whole thing out for 30 days for free. Doesn't matter if you're watching this live or you're listening to it down the road on the podcast version. Guys, use the code BULive30. Get signed up for the full program. That's over 1,000 videos, all with one goal in mind, to help you catch more big bass.
Absolutely.
More bigger bass.
More bigger bass. BTC, you let me know when Kobe's ready because we're going to bring him right in. And let's go.
Or
Or
we'll do what we talked about before the show.
which is
We're going to take a
let's roll.
commercial. Mike's going to come in. We're going to talk to Mike.
Is that? I thought that's what we
Pretty much. the opposite.
somehow I'm talking about one thing and we're hearing everybody's hearing something else. But I want you to hear this. BassBoatForSale.com is the place to list and buy your boat. If you've got a used boat you want to sell it, this is the place to go. If you're looking for a quality boat that you can buy, get out on the water and fish tomorrow, BassBoatForSale.com is the place to be. So,
Pete, they vet them boats.
they vet them boats.
They vet them boats.
Like we vet our speakers.
That-
Nothing but the
That's
best
right.
at Bass University
Right.
on the folks that we're working with, as well as the seminar speakers that we have. So definitely check those guys out. Apparently, we're going to take a break.
I got one more thing.
What's up?
Guys, going on next month on the Chesapeake Bay, June 5th. Guys, if you're an upper Chesapeake Bay angler, you got to get signed up for the Ike Foundation Pro-Am. Spots are filling up quick. It's the biggest event of the year on the Bay. If you're not from the Bay, you're not from the Northeast, guys, come out, show up, come fish an awesome cause. All the proceeds go towards helping getting kids involved in the sport of fishing. And first place is going to win a Bass Cat, and the top 5 prizes comes with cash and prizes. So, guys, get signed up. Ike Foundation Pro-Am. Just go to the IkeFoundation.org website, and you can get signed up through that.
After party in my garage.
All right, all right.
It's worth the entry right there.
GDP, you're going to make that one, or are you in Texas?
I'm going to be on Pickwick, I believe
In
it is.
Pickwick.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll miss you down there.
I'm going to miss out myself.
One of the hammers is going to be on the bank, guys, so that's good for us.
Two.
You know? Yeah, Ike will be there too. That's all right. Good.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have a little bit better over. I'll be there. Riz will be there. BTC
Could be.
could be. I hope to see you there. Right now, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with Kobe Krieger. We're going to be talking about fishing in a crowd, how to handle that situation. We'll be right back after this. Why bass boats for sale? Our mission is to be the premier bass boat outlet for listings and buyers. We believe if customers can't find it, it doesn't exist. Whether you need to sell your bass boat or are looking to buy a bass boat, it's simple. We give boats exposure so buyers shop and sellers list. BassBoatForSale.com.
AquaView, the leader in underwater viewing technology. Find what you are looking for. Catch more fish. Have more fun. AquaView. Seeing is believing.
Why do you love casting fishing rods?
I'm truly losing less fish.
Is the sensitivity of the rod.
That they're made right here in North Carolina in the USA. Strongest, lightest rod, 100% made here in Sanford, North Carolina.
From the drop shot rod to the flipping stick. Every rod has a purpose to it, and I rely on them all the time when I'm out there in a tournament.
Durability in the John Cruz Worming series, the counterbalancing in the handle.
It's the only rod I found that can withstand my hook set. Boom goes the dynamite.
On the water, not spent fishing, is a moment wasted. That's why Minn Kota and Humminbird have joined forces to bring you the One Boat Network. Products that communicate and integrate to help you take full command of your boat. Born from our commitment to making the most advanced fishing gear even better by making it work together. The One Boat Network will help you find, get to, stay on, and catch more fish. When One Boat Network products talk to each other, they can navigate your boat automatically. They can give you a crystal clear view of what's below with no messy wires. And they can let you lower, raise, and change shallow water anchor modes from anywhere on the boat. But that's just the beginning. We're never done innovating, integrating, and making your boat simpler and easier to control. All so you can make every second on the water count.
Welcome back to Bass University Live. Guys, we've got a great show tonight. Got Kobe Krieger coming in. We're going to have Ike with us tonight. We're talking about fishing in a crowd, how to handle that. We happen to be fishing around the pre-spawn, spawn type area recently at a Bassmaster Open. This took place on the James River, but it was as crowded. GDP, that was as crowded as a tournament. I've been fishing Bassmasters for a long time. I can't recall being so wadded up as we were in that derby.
You know, that time of year with the spawn, pre-spawn, it's just even worse because it's going to really confine everybody to the same areas. You know, that's kind of looking for the same pattern, which a lot of guys are all doing it.
Right.
But, yeah, 225 boats?
Yep.
That's a lot of boats on a body of water. The fish is really small.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The seasonal patterns, it grouped the fish up, which is going to group the anglers up, and in a 225 boat field, I was boat 221 coming out of the gate.
Nice.
On a derby like that, which was phenomenal.
That's typical though, Pete, because on a 225 passenger plane,
but you were boat number
your
what?
passenger.
You were boat 2 the next day or 3 the
221.
next day.
Yeah,
Am I right?
You are right.
That's right.
I am.
That's the move, man.
I like. There are times when that is the move. In this tournament, it was not a good move.
You know what? I'll tell you what else.
Gluzak, you got to launch. It's your to go.
Get that boat in the water.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what else was bad too. Day 1 blew really bad. So if you were fishing the main river, you probably took a lot of guys out of their areas and put them in other areas.
Didn't want to make that long boat ride in that heavy wind.
Yeah, I ran down to the Chick Day 1, and I'll tell you right now, I might have saw 30 boats down there.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy. In Day 2, it was a totally different story.
Right.
I was following everybody and their mom. I mean, there were just guys everywhere.
Yep. Because I saw 30 boats on my first stop.
I bet. I bet you did.
It was crazy. I pulled into a pocket, and I thought this was a pocket that had the potential to win, and Guys, I promise you, I could not hit the bank with a cast. I would have hit a boat before I hit the bank with any cast. It was so crowded. Maybe a half-mile shoreline, maybe a little bigger than a quarter mile. I don't know, something like that. And this was the area that these fish were congregating at practice. And obviously everybody in the tournament found it in addition to me. And I felt like this was going to get strengthened. The full moon was there. I thought the fish were going to pile in there. And I made the call. I say this sometimes. Sometimes you just got to fish where the fish are at. Nobody wants to do that, right? No, everybody wants to find that honey hole by themselves, that GPS point that's offshore that nobody else has found. And but sometimes you got to fish where the fish are at. And I think I made the call that this was the time of year to do it.
Yeah.
We had a warming trend. We had a spawn coming. These fish were congregating in the pockets, and I felt like I made the call that this was that time. So I just got in the crowd, and honestly, it was crazy. I was 2 boats deep. I had to fish at the habitat that was on the other side of the boats that were thrown at the bank. That's what I had to do.
Super tight.
For a little while.
So it was like you were being backboated the whole event. You were a co-angler.
I was like a guy observing a co-angler. I was so far down that list, It was like the co-anglers. Well, they all had a better shot than me. But what eventually happened in that area was like a space would open, and this was where you, like in a normal tournament, I would never be that close to somebody. I try to give people space. That I give them the courtesy I want and work it out. But when it's that crowded. Man, if 100 yards opens up, you got to or less. You slip in there, and you're like making repetitive casts. Your whole world shrinks down to what's in front of you. You got one tree, you got a little bit of a rock outcropping, and you might have some floating debris over here. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you just your repetitive casting, and that situation, I felt like you could get away with it because the fish were on the come, right? They were moving in a warming, developing pattern. More fish were likely to show up, and it was odd, but I got 2 fish after I got in, and I was happy with that. But it was a crazy busy time for me. I didn't like my 221 boat draw on day 1 in a tournament like that. I would have liked to have had it reversed where I was early flight on day 1, but it was reversed. So it was a little bit of a challenge for me. I can't believe the Chickahominy is like one of the premier fishing destinations on that river system. Only had a few boats. I can't believe that.
I didn't see many. I fished more towards the mouth day 1, and I could see who was coming in.
Yeah.
And I was boat number 13 day one. I passed everybody. I was the first one in there.
Yeah.
And I got down there, and I might have counted 30 boats that came through.
Wow.
Yep. I think that weather. I mean, it was pretty nasty. It was blowing.
Yeah.
You know,
it was piping.
Yeah. So I think that really kept a lot of guys from making that run. I
Yeah.
mean, it's 45 minutes an hour one way to get
Yep.
down there on a normal day.
Right.
So I just had her to the floor and let her eat and got down there.
Right. Well, the big benefit to me in being the last flight was I was due in at like 6 o'clock.
That's the other side
You
of
know?
what you had, though, because you had, 11 hours to fish, probably 10 hours, whatever it was?
Yeah, it was like 11. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was so close to 11 hours.
Yeah, it's like a catch-22. You might not pull up on your very first spot,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have more hours. It's really crazy. Like, I'm faced with this all the time. A lot of us are as tournament guys. You're like, where do I start? And then you got an early day, you got to get back in again if you got a good boat number. But on day one, it's like, man, do I want a later boat? Have a little more time to figure things out if they're not working properly?
Yeah.
It's really hard.
I actually love that draw. I love being early one day and late the next. Like in this situation, it would have been nice to have it reversed for me. I would have preferred that in that situation, but I don't like middle of the pack, right? Because middle of the pack, you never get a first look at anything, and you never get that real late day, So I was happy. I was happy with the draw. Just would have preferred that it would have been switched, but I fished really close to the launch ramp, and all of us, it's a river system that Brian, you're used to it. You ever fished it, James?
Nope. Yeah, Ike's bachelor party.
Oh yeah.
Not bachelor party, the day of his wedding.
Damn, we went on that James that day?
Yeah, we waited and we all half of us sunk in filled our waders and how many phones we lose? 2 or 3 phones, you-ish. Yeah.
That's
McGraw.
awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. They put us in a section of the James
the
that we
upper
shouldn't.
James.
Yeah, we shouldn't have been waiting.
Up there.
Nice.
Dude, McGraw's
Did you guys catch him?
Nah. McGraw's 6'6", and we watched him. We watched him. He's like, gone. Just see like the rod out of the water.
Not good in waders.
But anyhow, no, I've never fished James.
Well, the reason why I ask is and you guys, it would remind you of our river, the Delaware. It would remind you of that.
Cool.
It's extremely similar, and it's like Dredge Harbor. It's like fishing in the pits were like Darby Creek pit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you only got like 5 or 6 of them.
I got you. Yeah.
And with 150 boats piling
225 boat field when the place is fishing as small as it can possibly fish.
Yeah, and it was just like that. And where was it won?
At one of them spots.
One of them spots.
Yeah.
One of the simplest, easiest to find spot closest to the ramp, like a tablespoonful of gas. Would get you there. So
it's crazy.
Can it be won? Can it be won in a crowd? And obviously the answer is yes.
Yeah.
This tournament definitely was.
Yeah, we would have had him on if his English was better.
Right.
It's tough communicating, I believe. I hear.
Well, it was great win, and fishing. So, I mean, you can overcomplicate a tournament like this, and to be able to keep it simple like that, I think it was the right move. And I can tell you this because there was 2 types of habitat. I found fish doing the same thing down at the Chick that they were doing up in the James. They were doing the same thing, but the habitat was different. The habitat that I found them on down there was those shallow cypress trees, and the gravel ponds that we were fishing. I felt like because they were deeper, like it was easier for new waves of fish to pull up under your boat.
I bet.
That's the only reason I didn't go down to the Chick, because it was like, I mean, uber flat water. You couldn't even at low tide. You could barely get close enough to the trees. And I'm like, how are these fish going to replenish themselves?
Yeah.
It's like it was shallower than Lake Furnace Bay.
Well, not that we had a full moon too, so it sucked the tide out.
Sucked it out
big time.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like on the places that like we fish that is like that. It's super shallow. Like when the tide goes out, maybe you have grass lines or wood or something out in front to fish for those fish that are pulling out. Like I couldn't find them relating to any of that stuff. It's like the only time I could catch them was when they were up. But you said something that was really cool. when the tide got low, you saw them like laying over on their side. Is
I
that
did.
What the heck?
Describe that.
Yeah, so this practice I had 2.5 days. We had a lead event right against this, so I rushed over there as fast as I could after Chick. The practice for me was really different. The main areas that I was planning on fishing, I never threw a cast in practice on them because I've been to the James. I know where they spawn. I've never been there like at that particular month, but I've been there a month later when they're spawning. So I kind of, I didn't want to go on there and stick any fish, even though new ones were coming.
Yep.
But I went to some of the other areas that I have fished in the past, like areas that I know that a lot of fish go to. I literally waited till low tide because it's the cleanest water. You can see if they're on beds. When I pulled into a few of the areas, I literally saw this one in particular. It was laying on its side. Half the body was out of the water on the bed because the water was so low. I would say day one of the tournament, that fish probably had to move because the water got even lower. But it was no water on its back at all.
Right.
It was laying. It was a good fish, 3-pounder.
That's great. Were you able to catch that fish?
That was in practice. I just saw it sitting
Oh,
there.
okay.
And I ended up seeing a few more that day. But I really tried to gauge my practice. Like, if it was an hour away and it was low tide, I pulled out and I drew up there and looked in these areas.
Wow.
That's how I did it. And I went really far south also. And, the signs, the main areas that I fished in the Chickahominy River, I backed off. I didn't touch them because of all the things, the weather coming, the full moon, and the other areas that I was looking at, there were so many males that were coming. And I'm like, man, it's going to happen. And which is crazy. So day one of the event, I run down to the Chick, water super low, sucked out completely. I go to which I think is my best area, and I go in there, the water's so low, I leave, and I run even further south. I went down south, I got a limit like instantly. And then I came out. I don't know how much detail you want to do right now. I know we got Kobe waiting.
Yeah. What?
You want to jump on Kobe or just go into it all? All right, so anyway, day one I go down there. Water was too low. I left, went and got a limit, came back, water got a little bit higher. I made 3 passes, big area, 3 passes through this entire area. I never got them. The tide finally got really high. On my 4th pass, I had a shot at 20 pounds. I had 17.7.
They just pulled up there.
They were there.
Where do they go in that low tide? Do they just belly down in the mud, you think?
I think so. We kind of see a little bit on the bay here also where we have some ditches, we get really low tides, and fish just,
slide.
Just back off a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing happened there. And after that, I caught them like there's no tomorrow. It was 4 or 5 per tree. That's how many I caught day one.
Wow.
After the 4th time going through there.
Yeah.
It was a persistence thing. It was me just telling myself, like, this is where they're going. And I just kept it honest. I just kept checking. It was crazy, yeah. I had 5 for 8 pounds in the box, which isn't that high, but it's like it still makes you feel a little better when you got a limit.
Yeah, right.
If I caught a 10-pounder, I'd have 16. So I just kept checking it. I lost 2 really big ones day one that would have gave me at least 20 pounds. Little running story. We had a little bet with Kobe Krieger also. Kobe and I were staying together. Kobe said if he caught more than 15 pounds day one, he's buying steaks. So I had a bet if I caught more than 20, I was buying lobster.
Oh, man.
We didn't know how. The practice was, like I said, the fish were coming. It wasn't like they were just everywhere instantly. So we didn't know what was going to happen. Anyway, day one, I watched Kobe weigh in. He had a good bag, 17 something. I texted him instantly. I put a steak symbol. I sent him a steak symbol. He bought the steaks. But I had a shot at 20. It just, this didn't work out. Day two, I probably caught 40 fish.
Wow.
All males.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Well, speaking of your roommate, I see him waiting in the wings over here. Let's bring him in, BTC, and say hey to our friend who had a blistering tournament down there. Put the beat down on me personally, who was fishing right next to him. But it's good to see you, Kobe. How are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing well out here in stormy/sunny Florida.
You got the evening thunderstorms rolling through?
Yeah, they rolled through pretty good here a little while ago, and now it's sort of cool and just sort of getting humid again, getting hot.
What part of Florida are you in?
I live west of Lake Okeechobee, towards the Gulf of Mexico, between Clewiston and Fort Myers, Florida.
I got you.
A little town called Alva, Florida, which Ross Chastain in NASCAR has made popular in the last 3 years.
Awesome. I know I have an aunt that lives near there. But nice place to be down there, except for the storms. But I understood you came up and you're really excited to fish your favorite body of water, the James River.
Man, I tell you what, when the Northern Open schedule came out, I'm like, man, I really like the schedule except for the James River. I fished there several times, and it's just, dude, I've just done terrible there. So I wasn't really fired up about going there, but I put all my chips in the bag, and, we were going to see what happened.
Well, the chips paid off for you. That was a nice finish. You're off to a big start. Anything could happen the rest of the season, but that was a great finish, man.
Yeah, it was. I heard Greg talking a little while ago, and you heard about our bet and everything. I mean, practice was so terrible. I mean, terrible-wise in catching quality-sized fish. I mean, everybody was catching fish. We just struggled, at least in our household, to catch big ones or fish over 2 pounds. At least I did. And that's why a 15-pound mark, dude, I was going to be excited with 15 pounds. And, later in the day, which obviously I saw you the first day and the second day or whatever, but later in the day, when I was sort of adding up what I had, I'm like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to have to buy steaks for the whole house. That was one time happy to lose a bet, I can tell you that.
No, that was great. And I did. We bumped into each other. My big error was when I saw you, that was my third stop. And I had no idea that my third best place in my mind was actually the place to be. I had no idea that caliber of fish was going to be in there.
Well, and either did I. I was in there a little bit the first day I practiced Pete, and then the very last day of practice, I went in there first thing in the morning on very, very low tide, and I just went down the bank high on my trolling motor, never even made a cast, just looking to see if I could see some fish on the bed, and basically right, 200 yards from where you saw me on either side is where I saw the majority of them. Mm-hmm. That's where I spent most of my time. I mean, I fished that whole entire thing, but spent most of my time down there on that one end, and it seemed to be very profitable.
Man, it definitely was, and I got to ask you, I mean, the theme of tonight's show is how to survive fishing in a crowd, because, man, oh, man, were we fishing in a crowd. It's just like a lot of times when I'm fishing, and Greg, I love your comment because it's a really good one. You have to have a different kind of strategy. There's, a lot of times you like to try to let shorelines rest, right? And there was no letting shorelines rest in our situation, was there?
Well, there wasn't, and that is the most important key is letting, I don't care if it's a 50-yard stretch, a 25-yard stretch, or one tree rest for 20 or 30 minutes, or the longer you can let it rest, the better off it is, obviously. And that area that you saw me in, I didn't stay in there all day the first day. I had left and ran some other pits looking for some more spawners before the tide came up, didn't see anything, and I came back. Well, what happens when you leave an area like that is you don't know who's just fished the bank or who just fished a tree or a set of rocks or whatever it may be. So the second day, I said to myself, I'm not leaving. I'm staying here all day long, and I'm just going to go to a section of bank that hasn't had a boat on it for 15 or 20 minutes. And that's what I did. And I ended up catching fish throughout that whole thing, not just in one little area, but it was, because I just kept an eye everywhere. I know I made one gentleman not very happy with me. He was not real happy with me, but other than that, everybody in there got along really good.
Was his name Pete?
His name was not Pete. I think he did have an NJ on his boat, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the next question.
Do tell.
Yeah, well, shout out to Johnny Vanor, who was fishing in there with us, who also had a really good tournament. Hey, he scored a top 20 in that event.
There was one single tree right there where I'd caught two really good fish off of and had another, and I missed one. and it was one of those deals where I turned around and I was paying attention because he was going down one bank, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm like, okay, that tree's getting some rest. I just happened to turn around and I'm like, oh my God, he's going towards the tree.
Yes.
You know, I just put it on high and fished. I didn't big motor or anything. I was just trying to beat him to the tree, and we sort of met at the tree, and he wasn't real happy with me and said a couple of things. You know, we went on about our business, but
did he say anything good? Is there anything memorable?
I can't remember what he said. I have bad hearing, so I didn't even ask him really what he said, to be honest with you. But I know it wasn't very good. But it was a tenuous situation there because I was trying to make the top 10 and whatever. But when you're in that situation, those things are going to arise. You know, are going to happen. You just got to try to get along as best you can. And other than that, everything went pretty good.
Well, yeah, Johnny would have made the top 10 if he'd got to that tree before you, apparently.
Well, not the other times before he went to the tree. That was his problem.
Well, I tell you, there was a Daiwa boat in there that got me a couple times, and I don't know who was in that boat, but one time in particular, I just put a 3-pounder in the boat, and I'm moving down the bank, and I know, with a big field, you can't be as hostile as you would be normally in a spot that's not so crowded. So you got to be able to put up with it. But a couple times I felt like a long cast, I could be right in his back deck, and I'm like, man, we gotta be civil and exist in here together somehow.
You don't have to.
Well, if you cut my throat, I'm going to cut yours. Right, so you're going to get punished for that at the next turn. So, that's what you wind up getting in these situations. If you give me 50 feet, I'm going to give you 40. It's like you gotta have that balance.
Well, and it actually, I mean, it got pretty tight in there at times, and to give you an example, which I sort of made a mistake, and you know how if you got a spot that it's the juice. Sometimes you don't want to go right to the juice. You might want to make 3 or 4 casts before you get to the juice, just to make sure your drag is good and you got all your line before you make that initial cast.
That's not an option in the opens, huh?
Not in that open.
Well, the last day, there's only me and one other competitor fishing in there. And I'm like, man, this is going to be pretty good because, so I stopped short of where I wanted to be. And it wasn't that short. Trust me. It was less than 50 yards. And that competitor pulled right in front of me, and I'm like, man, it's my mistake, but I wouldn't have done that to him. But you know what I mean? It was just one of those deals, but it all worked out. He caught one little fish, and then he left and never saw him the rest of the day, so it all worked out in my favor. But it was just, that was my mistake I made. I should have started a little bit closer to the deal, and I left the door open, and I left the door open just a crack, and that guy took the crack and ran with it, and that was my own mistake. But that's just
that crack taking guy.
Yep. And I made there was the back wall there, the corner that you were keyed on, and then there was the other corner that just 100 feet away.
Yep.
That was that anywhere around those corners was the deal. And when I saw you and I both had ventured out and started cover. There was less boats on day 2, and I had ventured out away and caught some fish, made some nice movement. And I was like, well, I'm going to spend my last hour in that zone. And I could, when I had to go in, I had to go in at 2:30. So everybody, it was just, that was a mistake. I could not put my baits in the primary area with my last hour because I had explored and I had let myself drift away. You left your little area and you couldn't get back into it. That's exactly right. Yep.
It's the one good thing that happened to me. Like the first day, you were like weighed in at 8 o'clock, I think, or whatever that night. But I was fortunate enough to both days. I weighed in at 4 o'clock the first day and 4:10 the second day. So my day, a lot of times when you get your flight numbers that the night before, you're like, man, I'm never going to get first dibs at anything.
Yeah.
But in all reality, I got first dibs at that place the first morning because nobody was back there where I started except for me. So it worked out good. Plus, I got to fish there basically both afternoons when the tide got started rolling back around. So I got the morning bite and the afternoon bite. And so I was fortunate. Like, you only got the afternoon bite the first day, and then you had to go in. So I was fortunate in that regards, because every day after 3 o'clock, I called at least once.
That's awesome. And, we had talked about that, the strategy behind operating in tight quarters like that is difficult. The one of my strategies beyond bow position was technique. And we were talking about this, Greg. You got to find something. You got to find a bait, a line change, get more finesse or something to be able to try to get bites in that crowd. And I opted for the Carolina rig because I felt like a lot of guys probably aren't going to be throwing that in the spawn scenario, and I can maybe cover more water, intersect a few more beds, intersect some beds that maybe they're deeper that guys are overlooking, and it was great. It worked out well for me. Did you have a technique that was different, that was helping you through that?
Well, it was sort of a weird scenario because, I mean, I caught most of my fish, every fish that I weighed in except for one in this tournament, which is very unusual for me, on the same bait, which was a baby V&M swamp hog. I mean, in a green pumpkin blue haze with a dyed chartreuse on a very light weight. And I just made, I mean, dude, I fished slower than I've ever fished in my life. And I made, 3-foot segment casts to the bank if there wasn't a tree there. I mean, I put my talons down and I would just dissect the bank. And then when I got done dissecting the bank, I'd move a little bit and put my talons back down again and do the same thing. So presentation, like you said, and moving slow and making numerous casts, not very far apart, was very important. And another thing, fishing in those tight quarters was one thing, but tight quarters in a tidal situation where there's a time of day, where the fish are going to bite, when the tide's in, out, low, high, or whatever it may be. So you got to be in the right spot at the right time with the right bait at the right cast. So there's so many things that were so aggravating about that place. And to come out of it with a fifth place finish, dude, I was like ecstatic. Just, I mean, to be honest with you, it's like I won the tournament, to be honest with you, just because I usually struggle. And I did something I normally don't do, which is fish very slow with very small sinkers and a small bait, and made 1,000 casts. And I was actually pretty proud of myself. Just I was able to do that.
In a weird way, it simplifies the whole deal. Like, you only got this little section of bank that you have to work with. It's like you look at that water so much differently than if you got an entire bay that you can just put the trolling motor 8 and buzz down the bank and hit all the high percentage stuff. Like, you start noticing stuff on the bank so much more when you can't go left, you can't go right. Oh, there's a little stick under the water. Oh, I felt a rock there on my tungsten.
Yep.
Like,
that's huge.
Yeah, like it's almost like you got to kind of have that mentality sometimes, even when you're not in that super pressured situation. Like, if you identify an area where there's fish and there's good fish, right? Like, how many more can you catch out of those areas before you just write them off and leave?
Exactly. It was one thing on the last day, then when, the first couple of days you couldn't do a whole lot of, I guess I would say, practicing. But on the last day, since it was just me and one other competitor and a couple local guys, I got to practice a little bit more in my area I was fishing. And I'm a big topwater guy, and I know people are catching some fish on buzz baits, and I'm like, man, I'm going to catch a giant on a big pop R because that's what I love to do. And I probably caught 12 or 15 bass that day on my big pop R, but none of them went to the scales. So the best technique I found was fishing slow and throwing the little baby swamp hog at as many targets and as many casts. It was pretty neat deal, to be honest with you.
That was great, and you did an amazing job doing that and catching those fish, making that top 10, and using that unique technique in and amongst the crowd. I wished I could have been in there with you. I know there were so many guys that had 20-pound bags out of there. I couldn't believe it.
Now, Pete, did you tell him before I got on the call? I mean, you got to tell them about the flurry that I got to witness out of your boat the first day. Did you tell them flurry?
I did not. I didn't want to brag, Kobe. It was a moment, though.
I mean, you got to tell them about the flurry.
Man, Mike, you got to come over, man. We got into it. It was so cool because Kobe was in the corner, and I'm bombing Carolina rigs, and my co hangs up Texas rig on a log, and I ease up on the bank to free this bait up from the log, and for him, and I'm casting it, and it gives me an interesting casting angle, and I don't know. I caught a 3-pounder, and then I caught a 4-pounder, and then I got a 3.5. My partner catches one that's 5 pounds.
Wow. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Good job, man.
So happy for you.
But Kobe tried to protest him.
That's right. I know he was sight fishing it. He said he wasn't, but I know he was.
He actually was throwing a lizard with a chartreuse tail. And I guess that bass had grabbed the tail and swimming off with it, and he belly hooked that 5-pounder.
Wow.
And caught him.
Wow.
And caught him.
And struggled like you wouldn't believe just to get him in the boat because from the way he was hooked. It was. I mean, I'm watching this whole thing go down, and I'm like, holy cow! and he picks this fish up by his line horizontally and puts him in the boat.
Oh my God!
The fish is ways water, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And
Did Pete help him out at all?
he was actually going the other way, and no, he didn't really help him get that big one in the boat.
No. The boat, I was on the troll, and my boat was blowing into the bank, and he had things under control, and it seemed like he did, but yeah, I couldn't believe it. I'm telling him the belly land because he's trying to lip it. He's trying to lip the fish, and the fish is upside down with his mouth closed as tight as it could be possibly closed. And every time he touches that fish's lip, he just scoots. and I'm like, belly the fish, like just grab him.
Just grab him
up, The
fish was so top heavy, because he'd go to lift up the line and grab his fish's mouth. And he'd put his head farther in the water, so he did like Pete said, he'd swim off. So it was like a circus. He'd pull the string and then go. So he finally just lifted the string straight up, his line straight up in the air, and put it over in the boat.
I want to know what kind of hook he had.
What kind of line?
The right kind. The right kind. He had 2 like that. He had 3 fish for like near 12 pounds that day.
That was
ouch.
But that's the nature of your fish. What I was amazed about it, Kobe, is I never thought those fish would keep coming. I'm like, we're going to deplete these fish. Everybody's catching them.
That's exactly what I thought too. And it's what's weird. And I don't know if it's because it's tidal water. I mean, you'd go down the bank and, you catch 2 and you turn around 20 minutes later, go down the bank and catch 3 more. And you cast it to the same spot the last time down the bank and you just didn't get bit. So I don't know. I mean, you guys are a lot better at tidal water than I am, for sure. So, and I know the tide has a lot to do with it and the way they position and everything, but it just seemed I was the same way. I'm like, well, I'm going to go back to the glory hole one more day and see what happens. I'm going to go back another day, see what happens. And I thought I'd have to, do some running around or whatever, but obviously that's just, I guess that the way that place is this time of year, when they're moving into spawn, I guess.
Well, I guess too, right? I never knew there was that many fish on the James River.
I'll tell you what, one thing I've noticed about tidal fishing, dude, when you find the spot, they're coming. That's like the juicy spot, like on the flat, we experience it a lot. Like that's
colonies.
That's the concentration. That's where they're going every single time. So you guys obviously found that.
Yep.
The good stretch.
Yep. I want to see if that guy over there will put his headset on for a second and talk to us, but because he did something that was unique in that we all fished in crowds, and you did not do that. How are you, man? I'm doing good.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Real good.
Kobe, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Mike?
I'm doing great. Good job on James.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Mike, Remember when?
I didn't know the first day, but when I walked off stage and I saw saw him interviewing you, I said, "Well, I caught him today."
No, I love the James. I love tidal water. I love that time of the year. But it was. Here's the thing. I think if you're watching and listening tonight, here's what's hard to wrap your hands around. 225. Is that the right number?
I think it was 29, but that's
229 boats on a fishery that's not that big, right?
Especially that time of year.
So that's the thing you really have to wrap your hands around. So the guys that fished in a crowd and succeeded, Kobe, congratulations, because that was I run from that. I run from that stuff. It gives me agita to have boats within 10 feet. You know,
I still have agita.
I know
from having to deal with it.
I know.
that
I
week.
have agita. I can't deal with it.
Do people in the South get agita, or is that a northern thing?
I don't know.
What that is, so I'm not gonna say I've never had it, or I don't know what I've never had it, or I don't know what it is.
I think
It's that it's that feeling of nervousness and anxiety when there's like, I don't know, you feel awkward.
You're all verklempt.
Yeah, you just feel like nervous isn't the right word, but just it's like, I can't stay here anymore. I gotta leave.
I got
Well, I don't know if I've ever felt that way, but usually fishing, I can't handle it when I see, like, I look to my right and that guy's got one. I look behind me and that co-ang was look over there and they got one. I haven't had a bite yet, which luckily I had enough bites where that didn't happen, or enough bites where I'd catch a good one. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I just got to get a couple more bites. And I sort of mentally prepared, to be in that situation, because normally I'm like, I'd rather, especially down here on Okeechobee, you sort of have that problem. And I don't do very good at Okeechobee in a crowd because I never catch them. But the bad thing about Okeechobee, if you run from the crowd, you're also running the wrong direction.
Right.
I'll just go ahead and
right.
I mean, the James River, maybe this time of year, is sort of somewhat the same way. You're fishing in a crowd, you're probably fishing around a bunch of fish.
Yeah.
Unless you're up to find a little honey hole somewhere by yourself. But obviously I didn't have that much time to practice or don't know that place that well. So I just set her down in one area and went fishing.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I mean, you did. That's why I want, because we all kind of fished in a crowd.
Yeah.
Because I thought, just like Kobe said, if you're running away from those boats, you're running away from the fish.
Yeah.
And we see it on the Delaware. Like, try catching a fish anywhere but a spawning cove on the Delaware River this time of year.
Right.
It's not happening.
Right.
And that's what I just kept running through my head. I just got to fish where the fish are at. But you and Keith Poche was another one that you guys found fish that not all the guys were fishing for,
Yeah, well, here was the key, and I think that you guys had definitely found the areas where the mass of fish were spawning, the big biomass of fish were spawning. But, so here's – I didn't even top 10, so take it for what it's worth. But my deal was summertime creeks in a tidal system are flow creeks, are creeks that have an active flow in the back. Spawning creeks in a tidal system are creeks that are dead-end creeks that have no active flow. And, the big difference between the Delaware and a James or a Potomac is the amount of flow. So a spawning fish in a Delaware in a creek, you hardly ever find those because of the flow, the amount of flow. But the creeks in the James don't flow that hard.
It's true.
And you also don't have 8 foot of tide between high and low. So what I did, like Kobe, I only had 2 days of practice coming from Tennessee. So I spent 1 day in the Chick, and I spent 1 day in the Upper River. That's pretty much all I had, 1 full day in each area. And when I started running creeks, creeks that had no active flow in the back, that was the key to the success. So, the great thing about it is it's really obvious on satellite imagery. So, it was great because I honestly didn't even run electronics hardly except to go to waypoints, that I had marked where I got bites. But I didn't care about depth. I didn't care about any of that. I just, the satellite imagery was key because I could look at that creek and say, you know, it like ends in like a cup, or does it have a active creek in the back? And they didn't bite in those ones that had active flow, but the ones that had almost like a cup in the back,
right,
like almost like a canal. If Kobe, if you were in Florida, you know how they act in those canals. It was very similar to these dead end creeks, and that's what I targeted. So that was key. The only other thing I can give you that was really key for me is the day that I found those fish, I sight fished without seeing them, and I'll throw it to Brian the Carpenter and Riz on this one. I hate not catching them in practice. I am really bad about it. I look back on 25 years of tournament fishing, how many more tournaments I could have won if I wouldn't have stuck them in the practice. But I can't do that. I like catching them, even in practice. But in this one, I forced myself, and I used a hitchhiker on a max scent beaver style bait. And I've become a big believer in max scent for all species, not just smallmouth. And so what I did is I had
You're not the only one.
Yeah, I had a 1/4 ounce weight pegged on a hitchhiker with a max scent beaver in practice, and I was able to identify spawners without ever hurting them. And that was really, really key to what I did in the tournament. And I was able to sight fish without seeing the bass, sort of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Was this all water you had? Like fresh water,
this
like new water for you?
These were creeks I'd never fished on the James. Every creek that I had fished in summer, and all our history on the James came July, August, heat of the summer. They all sucked.
Right.
I never caught them.
Flow.
They had flow. They were not
Flo was in town.
Right. They were not in flow creeks. So these were. So once I figured it out, I sort of stumbled into a dead end one and got a couple bites, and I was like, the light bulb went off, and I was able to duplicate that.
Right.
You know, unfortunately.
Dead end creeks.
Yeah, unfortunately, the second day I got a later draw, and someone had, and this is nothing you can control. Kobe, how many times has this happened to you? I want to ask you this. You get into a place, and you know there was no evidence of a boat in there before me. You know how normally you go in a creek or a canal or whatever, and you can see bubbles, right? You see a bubble trail. Well, I get in there, I set off pad right in the mouth of this little dead end creek, and I'm like, oh shit, yes. We're the first here. Nobody's in here. Well, I fish all the way back behind somebody in the first creek. I did it again the second day in the second creek, and it was Keith Pochet.
Oh, man.
Man.
So, you know, it's one of those things. I mean, it's tournament fishing, you know, and it's nothing I can control. It's an uncontrollable, and you got to live with that, you know.
And he had a 23-pound bag on day 2.
He did have a 23-pound bag on day 2. And the other guy had a 17 3/4 bag on day 2, which either of those – I need a 13.5 pounds.
Yeah. Right.
But you know, it is what it is.
And that's the when you're fishing those areas, it seemed like they didn't replenish as much as the areas.
They did not. They were sort of
pits.
They were a smaller population of fish for sure. You guys had the mother load. You guys had the jumbo. You know, 75-80% of the biomass were coming into the pits. We were working with the 10 to 15 to 20% of the biomass,
right?
But there were some good ones. I caught a 6 3/4 the first day and a 5-pounder the first day. There's some big ones in there, you know.
Dead end creeks.
Dead end creeks, no non-flow creeks.
Man, I wrote that off. It's awesome that, and it makes sense. You know, I've done that. I've seen that a million times. We see example of almost a dead end creek in our rivers, the Schuylkill. The Hudson River.
Low flow creek, almost dead end.
Yeah, the
Bold
Hudson
in the
has
back.
all low flow creeks.
Yeah. A dam or, you know, something that blocks that flow is what you need it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was interesting. And of course, Greg was in the Cypress Trees. He was talking about as the tide swelled, because at low tide, you can't catch them. We were all talking about these fish must just pull out. They're spawning on them knees.
Yeah. And
they must just pull out and just wait for the tide to come back, and then they move back up on their nests.
Right.
Because Greg was telling us how on his 4th pass, 3 passes without a fish. And then on the 4th pass, as the tide gets a little higher, all exploded for
This
you.
is hours later. I'm
wow.
like 4 or 5 hours later.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was just like there was 4 or 5 per tree.
Right.
It was
4 or 5 per tree.
Wow.
Yep. Some with bloody tails.
That makes sense. What Kobe and Pete, what were your best tides in the community pits? Was it the higher water or the lower or the mid?
Well, on the low water tide, I could see the fish.
Yeah.
So I found it. But what's weird, I fished this one tree and I didn't get a bite, and I come back around on low tide and there sits one, about a 3.5 pounder. I'm like, dang, that fish had to just get there. Just had to get there because it acted really goofy. I mean, I've sight fished a million bass, so I mean, I'm like, that fish is acting weird. It just showed up. That was on day number 2. Well, I fished for 2 or 3 different times when the tide was low. The tide came back up. I went to the same tree. The tree disappears on high tide. You wouldn't even know it's there. So then on day number 3, the tide that morning is still sort of high. I fish around. I'm like, man, someone had to have caught this fish because there's been several boats up and down that bank. Sure enough, tide gets low enough. I go back to that same tree. There sits that same 3.5 pounder.
Wow.
No one caught it after however many boats went up and down the thing.
Crazy.
And I fished it up there. It don't swim off. I said, I'm going to catch this fish. The next cast I caught it, put it in the tank. So, low tide allowed me to find some new fish that I didn't see or didn't have bite. But to be honest with you, late in the day on that upper tide with a little bit of wind seemed to be the best.
I got to agree with you. At the low tide, I picked up the spinning rod, and I went with that little tiny bait and
what do you call it?
Tiny child.
The fat baby.
You changed the name of the tiny child, Rick?
I'm using
You can't do that.
It's a fat Senko. So
yeah, but you can't change the name of a rig.
We just morphed it a little bit.
What?
So, but it became that because it was so successful. It has to be the fat baby. The
Pete's Jelly Donut. It was called.
The tide got low, and I'm Carolina rigging, and I was first on the juice on the second day of the tournament, and and I'm like, I gotta hurry up because Kobe's coming.
He was the first one on the juice the second morning. Hey, damn it!
I had to. I knew they were just going to come raining down on me. I had about 10 or 15 minutes, and so I knew where I wanted to get, and I got a whole pass up and back on that back wall before the next boat came. Kobe, I couldn't believe that I had that much time. But
did you catch them?
I didn't. Like, I'm Carolina rigging, right? That's what I put, really hit them with on day 1 and at practice. That was my tool. I didn't really understand its relationship to the tide yet. And but when the tide got low, which was happening in the mornings, bluebird, still, calm, and I kept downgrading till I wound up with that finesse rig. And my first pitch with it, I had a fish swimming down the bank, and I'm like, whoa! Like, after fishing for 25 minutes without a bite, and I missed that fish because I didn't figure out the rigging on it yet, and I missed that one. I caught the next one. And then I had a 4.5 pounder to my hand, and he jumped over my hand, and I lost that fish.
What?
And then I re-rigged and got myself the way that I figured out what I needed to do, and I caught the next 10 in a row. But that's what I did. I caught like 10 in a row during that tide, and then the tide started coming in. Absolutely lost the bite.
Wow.
Like they got off of that finesse technique like a light switch, like Tidal fish can do.
Right.
And what I found, like you, and I didn't have much time left, because I had to figure this out, and I started catching fish, and then the tide got away from me, and then I had to go in because I was first flight that day. But that rig and that bite really excelled on the end of the incoming, and especially the beginning of the outgoing.
Yeah.
And you would never think that about spawning fish. Like, why does that matter to them? Why are they more active during a different tide phase? But it definitely was a deal in that tournament.
Right.
That high tide, that was key to get those spawners to bite.
Right. Yeah, a little more water in their heads. I have a question for all you guys, the whole panel. I want to start with Kobe and go to Greg and Pete. Talking about spawning fish, that bite can be funny. And I've had, over the years personally, I've had it happened to me a million times. I've had so many co-anglers talk to me about it. Kobe, that bite's funny. They hit funny when they're spawning. You'll have them pick up that worm, that lizard, that tube, and they shoot off with it. They, in your mind, you're like, man, I got him. I got this sucker. You set the hook and you miss. And it's so synonymous with spawning fish, especially ones that you're fishing for that you can't see. Have you found what's the cure to that, Kobe? I want to start with you, and I want to go to Greg and Pete. What's the cure for that? Because that's a funky thing that happens.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a cure for it or not. There may be a technique. I know a lot of guys talk of, a lot of times, when they know they're blind casting for spawners, when they feel a bite, they don't. Most of the time you feel a bite, you set the hook. So when you're blind casting spawners, you may feel the bite, but you may put a little pull or give them a little weight back to them. And a lot of times that does make a fish suck the bait in because he might think it's getting away a little bit or coming out of his mouth. So he's going to suck it in.
Right.
Would be the only technique or something that I would know.
Wow.
I mean, because I've visually fished spawning bass all over the country, and I've watched them at Lake Eufaula. I've watched them actually a bass pick a turtle up off of the bed in his mouth. Just pick it up daintily, pick it up, swim off the bed like 4 feet and go and blow it out of his mouth, and that turtle go chew, chew, chew. And I watch that turtle walk along the bottom back to the bed and that pick it up again and suck it in just very much, just like barely holding it in his lips.
Yeah.
Swim off the bed, blow it out of his mouth. And so I've seen so many weird things when I've been sight fishing that I've, sort of learned when you're blind sight fishing this time of year that you can't, when you feel a bite, you gotta give it a little bit of weight or tug on it. Not, you're not tug, just pull on a little bit and let it pull you down, then set the hook, and your success ratio goes up quite a bit.
Dude, that's an unbelievable tip. Rizzo Market, because I'm telling you right now that nobody ever tells you that. No one ever tells you to purposely
try to pull it away.
Pull on that fish a little before you get into them. And I love that. And it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. When you're in clear water and you see it, it sort of makes more sense. When you're not seeing what's happening, it doesn't make sense. But that makes a lot of sense.
You think you could do that?
I'd have a hard time doing it. I can't sit still, and I like to jack them. But it makes a lot of sense.
It does. That's a really good one, Kobe. I've not heard that about spawning fish before. That's pretty key.
In practice, the James River, I know, like Ike said, he didn't set the hook on too many of them, and I usually don't either. But at that tournament, I said, I'm going to catch them. I'm going to catch one each day until I go, shoot, I shouldn't have caught that one.
Yeah.
Quality tournament fish. So, man, they would bite that thing, and they would swim off. Dude, a lot of them would swim off quite a ways, and I finally say, okay, I'm going to set the hook. So you don't always have to set the hook right away when one bites it. You learn to pull on them a little bit, and you're not going to pull it away. And if the thing is spawning and you do pull it away, guess what? You go throw it back up there, he's going to bite it again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're better off to pull it away from him the first time and let him bite it the second time, because if you go to set the hook and you might mess him up and he may not bite, because when you visually sight fish for one and you set the hook, you might have nipped him a little bit with the hook, or you made him feel a little goofy.
Yeah.
Then he doesn't bite for 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good one. Greg, you got any special ones?
Yeah, I do. So for me, it's like, we kind of just went over this the other day on that lake we were at. I throw a really small beaver. I upgrade the hook. So when that fish bites that beaver, if it's going to carry off the back.
It's like a 3-inch, like a smallie beaver.
Like a smallie beaver size.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll throw it on a 4-rod, which is a giant hook.
Oversized. Yeah.
Oversize it.
Yeah.
It gives it more of a bite for the fish.
Right.
Obviously. If it gets that very end, it still has the hook. One of the main things I do is unpegging the weight.
Unpegged.
Unpegged.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So
that's a good one.
Lightweight, always run a quarter, usually 3/16. So when that bass picks up that bait, most of the time, it gives it a little less resistance.
Wow.
Resistance, nice.
That's a good one.
And one thing that I also noticed too, depending on what you're throwing too, obviously, it's a time of year where you kind of don't want to slack line hit them.
Right.
You want to do more of a pull, it seems like. You're using the big rod still.
Yeah.
You got plenty of power to sink the hook.
Yeah.
So slack line in that time of year, I think you lose a lot of fish because of that.
Right.
You know, they're not getting it good.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That actually falls in line with what Kobe said a little bit, right? Because you're sort of making a connection. You know, slackline them. There's nothing, then there's everything.
There's no pop.
You know, but with what Kobe said too, you know, you're almost getting into
Engaging
them a little.
them.
Yeah, you're getting into them a little, letting them feel you, and then getting them. So that makes a lot of sense. Pete, what do you got?
It's good stuff. The one thing that is key is when you get a bite. Like if you're fishing down the bank and you get a bite on the typical season, I might be inclined to write it off or keep going. But at this time of year, if I feel anything that could be considered a bite, a fish moving the bait, man, I power pole down if I can. And I'll put repetitive casts into that area 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And in that exact spot to try to find. I can't tell you how many fish I catch that way.
Yeah.
That I missed the strike on the first time, because they're doing like they did with my Co's bait.
Right.
You know, he's got the tail and he's just running off the nest. But I'm not lucky enough to belly hook a 5-pounder. So I got to throw back in there a few times.
Right.
You know? And but the other one,
you were throwing the fat baby. That's why you should have been throwing the lizard.
Yeah, you're right.
Lizard, you would have caught him.
I know he was throwing the lizard. But the other one is kind of along those lines. Is I know fish blow baits out on the nest, but I find my strike to catch ratio is way higher if I hesitate. If I hesitate, like when I'm boarding the plane.
And or making a decision. Responding to an email.
You got to get it right.
Right.
And you got to get it right this time. And
but you can't rush it.
And you can't. I find if you rush it, you come back with half a bait, limbs ripped off.
Yeah.
And or fish hooked, like Kobe was saying, that turtle in his lips. You'll get skin hooked fish. You'll tick them with the hook and annoy the fish. A lot of bad stuff can happen if you hit them like you would in the summertime. You know?
Right.
So hesitation, like in that situation, like many others, is a good thing.
It's a good thing. All right, there you have it, folks. Hesitation is key. I've got another one. This is just for me personally.
He who hesitates.
He who says hesitates is lost. Yeah. Kobe, I want to corner you on something. Yeah, honestly, I consider you one of the best sight fishermen out there, period. And I watched MLF today. I had like a honey-do list today. I was doing chores here for Becky, but I had MLF on, and they're doing a lot of sight fishing down there at Lake of the Ozarks right now. Talk to me about the color thing, because I saw guys do well. Jacob Wheeler won his round using white on beds, and it seemed very important to what he was doing. Other guys had very good event sight fishing with natural color baits, green pumpkin and watermelon. Talk to me about that, Kobe. What's the deal on color? Because I get that question a lot, and I don't know how to answer it because I suck at sight fishing.
Well, I don't know if you suck at sight fish or not. You're pretty hyped up. You just can't sit there.
You nailed it.
Right.
Correct.
The color on sight fishing, if a guy, in my opinion, is using a white bait for sight fishing, basically he's using that white bait so he can see that bait.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, I mean, I sight fish basically with 2 baits. I use a white bait or a green pumpkin bait. Now, those Ozark type lakes or Table Rock, Beaver Lake comes in mind with me. Green pumpkin really works well there. I don't know if it's because the water's so gin clear, because you can see green pumpkin in that water because it's plenty clear enough.
Yeah.
But most of the time when I'm sight fishing, I use a white bait because I can see that bait. I can see the bait. I know that obviously the fish can see the bait, and when that white thing disappears, I know it's in the fish's mouth, and I can set the hook with and legally keep that fish in my live well.
Right.
The green pumpkin style bait, a lot of times it gets lost in the bed or lost in the rocks or by the log, and you really can't see it very well. So you do take a chance of foul hooking the fish and having to let, so that's the way, I use a white bait most of the time just so I can see it. And then, but you can tell, sometimes when that fish gets up and he sees that white thing in the bed, he doesn't like that white thing because it's not really natural, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So swim off, and you put something that green pumpkin or black or darker that's in that bed, it just sort of mixes in with what's on the bottom a lot of times, and he just swims up there, and you barely move it, and then he's like, oh, wait a minute, there's something in here that shouldn't be in there, and he goes over and investigates it. So a white bait, in my opinion, is used mainly for the fisherman to see more than the fish, to be honest with you, so you know how he's reacting to your bait. And then you go with the more natural colors when, you know, you don't really need to see what the fish is doing to your bait. And that's my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I use, or that's what I do when I sight fish. And I mean, but 90% of the time I'm throwing white, just to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We saw Jacob do that. I saw him just at the end of the day. It's amazing. He's winning the tournament again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's crazy good.
Yeah.
Rich, we got some questions?
Yeah, we got a question from Frank. Frank. We can go ahead and open this up for the whole panel.
Frank Rizzo.
He wants to know when you're fishing in crowded areas, high pressure situations, what's the first move typically? Is it to power up or go finesse, and why?
That's a good question.
Man. Well, I'll tackle it first and let you guys go from there. But when you're in that crowded situation, the very first thing that I'm going to think about is downsizing. But I'm going to start out with what especially if I can get first passes on areas, if I'm getting a first look at a fish. But if I'm sensing that bite is not what it was at practice, if it's, I'm seeing something different happening, my first move is going to be to downsize and try to deal with the pressure that way, whether it's lighter line, smaller baits. But I am going to come out of the gate. I'm going to come out of the gate power fishing, especially if I can get that first pass. I think that's a big deal. What do you think?
I'd run. I'd leave. I'd start the outboard up and go 70s plus out of there if I saw that many boats. I don't want any parts of that shit.
GDP?
Same as you, Pete. Power all the way first, if I can.
Try to make it go.
Yep.
Kobe?
It's the same thing. It depends on what time of day it is or what time of the day it is. What stage of the overcrowded spot you're fishing. Like you said, if it's first thing in the morning, you're gonna try to fish as much of that overcrowded place as you can first or second. So you want to move along to try to get first dibs. Later in the day, you downsize, you slow down. I was throwing somewhat of a smaller bait to begin with at the James River. I didn't really downsize. I just slowed down. I slowed way down. So you might still be able to throw your favorite bait technique, but you're just going to have to make a lot more casts or a lot tighter areas than you would if you were just going wide open.
I like Mike's solution best, if you can find it. I think we all like that.
Find another area and go.
Get out of there.
And then another question, actually, from Frank again.
Frank Rizzo.
He wants to know, how important is it when you're spawn fishing or sight fishing to wear clothing that matches up to either the bank behind you or the sky above you?
Well, hey, Frank, if you look at everybody's boats, I would say 20 years ago, that was a good argument. But if you look at everybody's boats right now that are green, lime green, bright, lighting and stuff, guess what, buddy? I don't think color, what you wear, really matters, in my opinion, anymore.
Yeah.
Mike, do you remember how you used to pronounce chartreuse?
Chatteris. I said Chatteris a long time ago.
I thought it was Chatteris for a couple of years.
Because I gave that to you.
Yeah, when they first invented it.
Yeah, it's chartreuse.
Chatteris.
Yeah,
that's a good.
I agree. I don't think that matters as much. I think your boat positioning matters. I think your presence, right? If like where the sun is at, all that I think you should be conscious of. But your clothing or your boat, I don't think any of that matters. I think.
How about your musk?
Or your musk? I don't think your musk matters.
Greg?
Musk? No musk.
No musk.
Yeah.
No.
I think movement is key. Greg, do you?
I think
I feel the need to be still.
Oh, God,
And,
yeah.
like, as soon as I
Yeah.
see a fish,
Yeah.
it's guaranteed whoever's in my boat decides to go in the cooler, turn the radio on.
Hang up.
Yeah.
Hang their most expensive bait.
Drop a tackle box in the belly of the boat.
Slam a lid.
Slam a lid.
I
think movement is important.
I think position is key. I mean, if you can position yourself to where you can see that fish, he has maybe a glare on you looking back. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's
so boat positioning and presence outweighs the
and
colors.
And
or whatever.
sometimes you can't control that, but you can back off and throw a bomb cast to them.
Yeah.
That's one thing you can do.
Yeah.
Yep, we saw you do that last week.
We did. We did.
It's a great success.
It's on movements the biggest key. I mean, there's millions of bass that are underneath people's docks that get used to people being on the dock, and you can stand right over that fish as long as you don't go anywhere. I mean, if you can talon down, power pull down, raptor down, and sit there, more times than not, that fish is going to get used to you as long as you don't make any real herky-jerky sudden movements. I mean, dude, I catch most of the fish I sight fish for within 15 feet from my boat. I mean, I just sit there, and I'm real patient, especially if it's one that you want to catch. Take your time, be stealthy, be stealthy, on the deck of your boat, and you're gonna have a lot more success.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've got one. I want to throw it around to the panel again. I'm being so selfish here because these are all. I like I said, I want to know because I'm not very good at it. We talked about color. A white one and a natural one seem very important. I want to know about shape. I'd like to hear from everybody.
Ooh, okay.
Your favorite shape. Kobe, start with you. We know you fished a lizard on James, but if you're traditional sight fishing, where you can see the fish, give us your favorite shape. I know there's several, but give us your favorite.
I'll tell you my favorite bait, and I've been after V&M baits for I couldn't tell you how many years to make me one, but I use a Zoom. A Zoom. It's not a brush hog. It's a super hog, a Zoom super hog and white pearl. And I
super hog.
And I cut all the two little tentacles that hang off to the side. I rip both of those off, and I break the tail apart. So that way, when I drop it in the bed, it goes straight in the bed. It doesn't veer off left or right. So when I know I drop it, I know where it's going to go. That's the bait I use. If it's sight fishing time, it's going to be on my pole. It's going to be on the end of my string. It's either that or a big lizard. That's it. That's the two baits I use.
Yeah.
Period.
Lizard and super hog. That's a good one. Pete?
Well, it's odd because when I'm blind fishing, I'm always using creatures. I'll use like a rage bug is one of my favorites that I like to use. The baby brush hog when I'm blind fishing is they're great tools. The other baits you're going to probably be shocked to hear me say this, but is a stick bait. It's
what color?
Elizabeth. But so those are the two that the two kinds of shapes that I'm going to try to make work. But I gotta give kudos because he won the elite this year. And he gave an amazing seminar at Bass University. Is Drew Cook?
Yeah.
And the shape that he's talking is that big bite baits, tilapia magic. It's the fighting frog. I couldn't
that's a
remember
bluegill. That's a bluegill shape. It's a wider profile.
It is. It is. It's like a combination of a crawl, bluegill.
Yeah.
But it's got the
bait.
flappy crawl.
I know the bait.
The claws on it, and it's got kind of a hollow body.
Yeah.
A little bit, but that shape is amazing. He gave a seminar about how to use that bait about 2 months before he won the tournament
on
the elites, and he used those exact techniques.
Yeah,
and that's all he uses.
Yeah,
like he doesn't throw it in a different color.
Right.
He doesn't throw a different shape. He just
that.
He will drown that bait and get him to bite it, and does something really cool. Like you heard Kobe talk, about trying to pull that bait away from the fish. But his cool strategy, which is awesome, is he hides the bait. He tries purposefully to hide that bait on a stalk of grass, a leaf pile, anything around the nest. and hide it there and allow that fish to reset back up on the nest. And then pull that out
and then sneak it in there.
Sneak it in there so the fish can see it pop out of its hiding spot.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Really, really advanced.
That is advanced.
Advanced stuff. But
I like his moves.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm stick bait, creature bait guy.
Okay. Greg, favorite shape?
I have 3.
Okay.
And, they're all different.
Okay.
Number 1, I'm going to go that little tiny beaver for a bluegill.
Yeah.
Bluegill shape, kind of round, small.
Yeah.
What, Brian?
Nothing.
So listen,
compact beaver.
Yeah, basically, I feel as myself, I've done a lot of bed fishing. I just feel like these rotation-wise are really good for me. A robo worm on a drop shot is phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's
a
something
good one.
that's very, very finesse. That on them real pressured fish, I can get them to bite a lot of times on that. I'll even take that little beaver and I'll drop shot that sometimes.
4-inch robo or the 6-inch?
4-inch.
4-inch robo.
And it's always orange morning dawn. That's always the color, no matter where I've been.
Yeah.
Besides that, I got to go to stick bait. It's
Stick bait,
such a quiet presentation. You can
Yeah.
throw it past the bed and just kind of pop it into there. And man, on a pressured fish, it gets
Rig
crazy.
how?
Here's
wacky rig.
Here's what's
Wacky
interesting.
rig.
I'm gonna throw Kobe and Pete under the bus and myself because we're the oldest guys here. Remember back in the day when, like, I remember, and at the time I was still like at the local regional level, but Guido and Shaw were the guys, and Peter T were the guy. Like, they were the guys, and you watched them guys, right? Dude, it was all about the tube. If you threw anything else but a G3, a G2 tube, forget it. Leave that shit at home because it was only the tube.
That's the only thing.
Why has all that changed? Kobe, why has that changed? You remember that.
Come on, Kobe.
Well, heck, dude, I grew up north in Michigan and northern Indiana where the tubes, you went tube fishing. That's all you took was 14 different colors of tubes and went tube fishing.
Yeah.
And the reason why I never really got hooked on the tube thing, because back in the day, it was really hard to find a hook
Yes.
that you could use and be very successful on hookup ratio. And, not foul hooking the fish, because you could, smallmouth fish, obviously you throw it on the open jig head and no big deal. But largemouth fishing in grass or round stumps, you'd get hung up a lot. So it was hard to find a hook for me that made bed fishing with a tube successful. That's why and the Zoom Super Hog is basically, the body on it's not 3 inches long and it's got 2 little tails that hang off of it. It's actually really close to a tube. It just doesn't have all the tentacles. That's all. They're just more solid pieces.
Right.
And same thing, with a beaver style bait's the same thing. That fighting frog, which is funny because the first thing you said was that's a bluegill bait. And that's because I remember Dean Rojas and a fighting frog and catching that huge stringer on it. And that's what it looks like to me. It's more of a bluegill imitation than a frog. So I don't even know why they call it a frog. They should have called it the fighting bluegill, in my opinion. But whatever. But that a bluegill, some type of bluegill bait is probably one of the best things you can throw on a bed, anyways.
Yeah. It's incredible how times change and
the gilly
the gilly. The mentalities change because it was like you had to throw a tube, and the other thing is back then I remember you had to throw light line. Like you would never see sight fishermen with a bait caster. Never, dude. It was sacrilegious. These guys were using 6, 8, and 10-pound tests. It would take them 30 minutes to land one sometimes. Talk about that, Kobe, because I see a lot of great sight fishermen now using 15, 17, 20 straight braid. Like it doesn't even matter. Does it matter? Does line matter?
I think I think sight fishing, I've looked at enough fish and you can pull up there and you can say, well, that fish is going to bite. I'm good. Or I'm going to have to work on that fish. And then if you're going to have to work on that fish, then you might get into some other goofy technique, drop shot and light line, things like that. But in a tournament format, the way we fish nowadays, heck, dude, you're going to go up to pull up to that fish. And if he ain't going to bite my super hog or my lizard, in a pretty relatively short time, we're going to move on unless it's a great big one.
Yeah.
So, you can still use all that technique and everything, but obviously hundreds and thousands of fishermen have proven, Drew Cook proved it to Santee Cooper. You go with a big stick and big line and a big bait and a big hook and you catch big fish, and it's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
It's interesting.
So what are you going to do when you win the points in the Northern Open, Scooby?
It's awesome.
Well, if I get fortunate enough, at least that way I'll requalify for the elites. You know, it's amazing. I talked to a few of my buddies, and I've been fortunate enough to do well enough in the Northern Opens a couple of times and actually win the points thing, you know. So I go to an open event against 225 plus people and come in fifth, and I fish an elite out of 94 people, and I can't beat 47 of them. So I don't know. I got to get that worked out mentally in my head, to be honest with you. And maybe we won't have to worry about winning the Northern points thing.
I'm right there with you. I'm struggling this year as well. Let me get Brian, real quick. I want to get a little Ike Live with Kobe real quick.
Oh, I was gonna say I got a question from Dave B.
Oh yeah, let's do that first.
Kobe, he wants to know, being that it was the James River and its close proximity with Washington D.C. Was there? Do you think there's any correlation with the bass preferring a lizard? And Washington, D.C. being in close proximity with the lizard people.
I don't think that has much to do with it. I think it's the time of year and biting them.
What are the
No, Kobe, you're wrong. It was the lizard people. Thanks for coming on the show.
I had a 50-50.
That was a good one. That was a good silly question because I want to ask the silly question. Kobe, you travel occasionally. I see you traveling with Greg Hackney. I see you traveling with Prosnick.
The other guy.
Anybody fart, burp, talk in their sleep? Like, give me some bad habits, bad traveling habits of these guys.
Jacob Prosnick, man, he's going to not be happy with his buddy. This happened when he traveled to my house when me and my wife Lisa lived in Okeechobee. She gave him the nickname Pee-Pee.
Yes.
Went right along with that, and he is, and that stands for Pigpen, by the way. The Peanuts back in the day, you know, that was 20-some years ago when all that happened. So him and his, he snores. Jacob snores, but Greg Hackney, he is like a ghost. Like, you'll be talking to him 1 second on the couch, and you'll turn, and he's gone. And he's gone for the night. He's in bed, and it may be 30, it may be 7:45, and he's just gone. So
like that move.
But he's a lot more serious about things maybe than me and Jacob are. Me and Jacob are up late, but Jacob's not allowed to go to bed before I go to bed, because if he goes to bed before me, then I'm up all night because he snores so much.
That makes sense.
What about GDP? You just stayed with him. Give us the goods on GDP.
Yeah.
Well, man, I don't know what I can say, but I didn't see him a whole lot because he was sort of on a mini vacation. I mean, and he'll vouch for this because he'll come in from the door. Other than the night that I bought steaks for everybody, he was out and about that night. From practicing, and he goes, shoot, right into his room. And the next morning I'll be up and I'll be walking, and he comes right out the room. See you later. Shoot, out the door he goes. Really solid.
Focused.
That's it, man.
Focused. Heavy focus.
Yeah, he was focused on something.
Kelly was there.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, and we were staying in Jacob's room in his bedroom.
You were what?
In Jacob's bedroom.
Oh, God.
He gave us a house and left.
Jacob was not there, though. Just clarify that, Greg.
He was not there.
That is an important thing to
Yeah, all three of you guys are just in the bedroom. That would have been cool.
Huh.
That shit's coming back in style now. So
never went out.
Yeah.
Does Kobe call soda pop or something weird?
Oh, no.
Like guys from North do?
He did
I like
say,
pop.
He
Yeah.
did say something. I had no idea what he said. I don't know what it was though. I can't remember. And then Jim Diller was there too. I can't even understand Jim when he talks.
You needed to you had to decipher.
Yeah, he's from Louisiana. It's different.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
We actually had at the house that week. We had a pretty good mix of people because we had Chancey.
We did.
Walt, he was from Iowa, and he was always. And Greg always made this comment. He'd always say, "Right here, right now."
Yeah, man.
I'm like,
that's how he talks.
Chancey says that all the time. He goes, "Right here, right now." and he always does it in that little Iowa twang that he's got or whatever. And he always talked about the herd bowl. He was a herd bowl, and we had satellite bowls at the house. It was a crazy week, to be honest with you. And of course we did have, like he said, Jim Dillard from Louisiana, and he was all over the place. So it was, it was quite the time, to be honest with you. It was actually a good time.
It was a good time.
That's awesome.
Wow. It was an excellent tournament, Kobe. Congratulations.
Yeah,
on
congrats,
a
Kobe.
great
That
start
was awesome.
to the season,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Kobe, do you have any advice for Pete for how to handle the I don't like the foreign anglers? Like, how do you? Because back in the day, like I won't say like bullying, but owning your spot and kind of like they used to do. But Pete got bullied around by a Japanese angler, and he needs help.
I doubt it.
The language barrier, obviously, correct?
That makes it easier.
So you don't know if they understand you or not. So you just try to be kind to them and use hand signals, nice hand gestures, and that's the way you sort of work things out. And that's how I work things out.
That's
Can
good.
you show us one of them?
What do you do when nice hand gestures don't work?
Bumper boat.
Which was pretty cool. And this is a real story. In there where we were fishing, Pete, when boats got running around, especially when the tide was going in, the bank would get muddy and everything. Mm-hmm. And the gentleman's name in there, I can't remember, was this Keo's that was in there with us?
Kenta?
Kenta. Or no, it wasn't Kenta. It was the other gentleman that come in and finished 10th. I can't remember his name. But anyways, I motioned to him. I said, no wake, waves. And he goes, oh. So whenever he was around me, he would idle from one side to the other. And I would show him the same respect because that way he wouldn't muddy up the bank. And we sort of worked together, and it actually worked out pretty good for both of us because we spent a lot of time in there. So it was actually pretty cool, but it's definitely do have a language barrier, and you don't know if they understand you or you don't understand them. So it does make it a little rough at times.
I didn't get bullied.
We
just had a little disagreement about who owned the shoreline. That's all.
Well, you could do. Did you ever think about bribery? Because the Japanese anglers are really into old school, classic American baits, especially hard baits.
Is that true?
That's very true.
And Britney Spears.
But no, if you have Pete, I know you have a lot of. You have a lot of old Bagleys. Mm-hmm. If you have old Bagleys, old Wiggle warts, original, we're talking original warts, original brass eye Bagleys. Think about bribery next time. Think about it.
I'll think about it.
Or threaten with physical violence.
We just cut them off right back.
Pete.
That's what we did. We just cut them off right back.
All right. There you go. There you have it.
Good. It was all. Fortunately, there was a lot of fish to go around, so that part of it was cool. Everybody caught them, and there was amazing. Everybody I talked to. Venora had an 18-pound day out of there. The kid was in second place out of there after day one with a 22-pound stringer. And, awesome. Of course, Kobe had a 5th place finish. There was another top 10. Like you said, there was 2 top 10s come out of there.
Wow.
A
lot of big fish.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. But it was a treat fishing around you, Kobe. I haven't been around you since we interviewed you, I guess, at the Classic or iCast.
It was actually a good time, and for whatever reason, I know they're really hectic, but the opens, I really enjoy fishing them. It's not more of a laid back situation because it's pretty intense with all the anglers and everything. But for some reason, when I go to them, I just enjoy them. It's just a fun time.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
And that was the first tournament in years, probably 4 or 5 years that I fished with a co-angler in the back of my boat. So that was, a good experience again for the most part. So it was a good time. And, I got to see a bunch of people I hadn't seen in several years, and, looking forward to see what happens when they go to Oneida here in a month or so.
Well, I want to wish you best of luck. We're gonna take a quick break here. I hope at Lake Oneida I'm not forced to cast to your outboard like I was at the James River. And maybe we can find a population apart from each other. But
I appreciate it, and y'all have a safe and happy evening.
You too.
You too. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kobe.
Krieger. Thank you, buddy. Great job again. Amazing work at the James. And guys, we're going to take a quick break. We got a lot of cool prizes. We have a Facebook like and share contest going on. Make sure it's a $50 V&M Baits package courtesy of Kobe Krieger.
That's a good
So
one.
if you haven't done it yet, like and share the live feed that you're watching right now over on Facebook. And we have a grand prize, $100 V&M Baits package, which we're going to be giving away on a trivia question based on tonight's show. Riz, is that what we got?
Based on tonight's show and
Based.
Brian's tackle box.
And Brian's tackle
That's
box.
right. We've got
That's questionable.
Oh, yeah. I want to know if you know what it is. I'm very curious.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back and give
in
away some stuff.
3 minutes.
Why bass boats for sale? Our mission is to be the premier bass boat outlet for listings and buyers. We believe if customers can't find it, it doesn't exist. Whether you need to sell your bass boat or are looking to buy a bass boat, it's simple. We give boats exposure so buyers shop and sellers list. BassBoatForSale.com.
Aquaview, the leader in underwater viewing technology. Find what you are looking for. Catch more fish. Have more fun. Aquaview. Seeing is believing.
Why do you love catching fishing rods?
I'm truly losing less fish.
It is the sensitivity of the rod.
That they're made right here in North Carolina in the USA. Strongest, lightest rod, 100% made here in Sanford, North Carolina.
From the drop shot rod to the flipping stick, every rod has a purpose to it, and I rely on them all the time when I'm out there in a tournament.
Durability in the John Cruz Worman series, the counterbalancing in the handle.
It's the only rod I found that can withstand my hook set. Boom goes the dynamite.
On the water not spent fishing is a moment wasted. That's why Minn Kota and Humminbird have joined forces to bring you the One Boat Network. Products that communicate and integrate to help you take full command of your boat. Born from our commitment to making the most advanced fishing gear even better by making it work together. The One Boat Network will help you find, get to, stay on, and catch more fish. When One Boat Network products talk to each other, they can navigate your boat automatically. They can give you a crystal clear view of what's below with no messy wires. And they can let you lower, raise, and change shallow water anchor modes from anywhere on the boat. But that's just the beginning. We're never done innovating, integrating, and making your boat simpler and easier to control. All so you can make every second on the water count.
Why bass?
And we're back.
Welcome back, everybody. What a cool deal. Thanks, Ike, for stopping by. Good to have you back in the show. and thanks, Kobe. Again, what a great appearance. It's awesome to hear all those stories and go through that process. I know we all learned a lot, especially we were talking about at the break.
Yeah.
Pulling that bait away.
Yeah, big deal.
To get that fish to commit.
I like it.
Who's got the guts to get a bite and start trying to pull it away from the fish? Do you?
I'm going to try it.
No. I feel the tick and I swing as hard as I can.
Riz, it's not in them. Not happening. But
not yet, anyway.
Yeah. No, not yet.
Great.
It's gonna take some time.
If we go to the Bass University studio pond, that's a great place.
Great place to learn.
It. Yeah.
Great proving grounds. It's like batting practice when they're just everyone
Slow
is just
pitch.
55 miles an hour right down the pipe.
Straight and
You know what I
flat.
mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
flat.
Yeah.
Kind of curves
swings
away a
in a
little
row.
bit. Like gets right on the fat part of the bat.
Yep.
Every cast, you're like, man, I
should
could
go pro.
Yeah, I can really do this.
It's honestly, it's YouTube. No offense, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guys that grow up on a great pond. Oh,
Yeah.
I should go pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great pond.
You know, you can really do that, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what that place was because we were filming on this great pond. Thanks, courtesy of the Parkers. Appreciate you letting us have access. But I had caught one glide bait fish, which was on the
James River.
On
How
the
about
James
that?
River at practice, and I decided I was gonna make a few casts with the glide bait while we were there just to get comfortable with it. And I picked up the Arashi glide, and I made 10 casts, and I caught 2 3-pounders on the glide in 10 casts. I'm like, why am I don't. We had to leave. We had to leave. I could
Oh my
not
God.
believe that we couldn't stay and keep going.
I
you know?
probably would have made 10 more casts.
I know. Well, I had to make some casts. Anyway, it was awesome, and you guys are going to see a lot of that stuff that we did down there coming soon to Bash University. But let's give away some stuff.
Sounds
Riz.
good.
Do you want to do the Facebook like and share first? or-
Let's queue up the trivia first.
All right.
You want to go with the with that?
We're going to try this.
Okay.
This is going to be tough to pull off. Beans, I don't have a picture of it, and there's kind of winging it. But we're going to look at this camera right here. Look me into the eyes. And
We could do it on the main camera.
We might try that one in a
Okay.
second.
Try both.
Want you guys to try to identify this soft plastic bait.
Who knows it?
It's very unique shape.
It is a tube.
Somebody will get this.
How old is that bait?
I would be
Brian?
surprised if somebody gets that.
Somebody's going to get it.
Do you know what year that was made?
Nah.
It could be like now.
Is it made? Is it current? Is it manufactured today?
I say no.
Unknown. Big unknown. I will say this.
I'm gonna look it up.
You remember the tubes that Ish Monroe used?
I do. They were giant.
At Amistad? I don't know what they were called. I think they were tiger tubes. I don't know, but I have tiger tubes, which are like they're 8 inches long.
I've caught them on that before.
Dude.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. 1/4 ounce weight.
Wow.
I was with Mike.
Yeah.
Shortly after all that went down, we
Right.
fished a place in Maryland.
Okay.
Where it happens, where you might need to, just get there. Maybe you don't really have permission, but you just go. But yeah, it's wild, dude. That bait hits the water, and then it like slowly fills with water and falls down. Oh
Yeah.
my God, they attack it.
Did they really?
That giant thing just says slow falls. The bubbles are coming out of it.
Wow.
I don't see it for sale right now, that bait.
Neat stuff. Yeah, but that is a little bit smaller. It looks like it's about 3 inches. Is that 4 inches?
That's a 4.
Is that a 4 inch?
All day long, Peter.
Yeah, it's soft. It's a soft plastic. It's got a rigging head on it,
Hard
like
spot.
like the Denny Brower tubes used to have that solid head.
Tora tube.
Toro tube. That's what Ish used.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was South Jersey Fisherman on the YouTube stream.
He's got some gill plates on it.
South Jersey Fisherman 028. You ought to be on the Bass U live stream so you can win stuff
Talk
instead
to
on
me.
YouTube. Cause
Somebody's got it on YouTube.
nah, he was just talking about Ish's tube.
Haven't seen it yet.
Nah.
I got the package here.
It looks like
in
a
front of me.
dragon head.
So, man, you got a tournament with some big fish coming up.
We do.
TDP.
We do.
Right? Is there any reports? Have you seen like any information about the lake? That
I haven't been really hunting. I'll do it probably this week coming. The one
Yeah.
thing I do know is the lake is like 6 feet low.
Oh, it's still low.
Which, if you remember when Keith Coombs caught that mega bags there in that elite tournament,
Greg, what did you say?
fork was 6 feet low.
Oh, Keith Coombs.
Keith Coombs.
Okay.
Keith Coombs like crushed them. There's like a
Coombs.
whole bunch of 100-pound belts.
Right.
The water's down low. It's going to confine.
Right.
It'll probably fish big but small, if that makes sense. The weights will be high, but the areas will be tight.
Gotcha.
I'm guessing so.
Post. So you're thinking it's going to be a post spawn deal?
I think it's going to be spawn.
Still
post.
spawn.
Yeah, them Texas fish, East Texas, always seem to be late.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always some left over. So
Yeah.
I think spawn, post spawn, shad spawn, definitely, probably.
Right.
And I think deep. I think all the above. Seriously.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'll be cool to see. Of course, Livesey's win was magnificent with the topwater. That was a shad spawn.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? That's
Yeah,
what,
so
he was around the gizzard shad.
We've always been
gizzards.
there kind of the same time of year, pretty
Right.
much, for the last 3 years in a row.
Okay.
Did he have his power poles down, a trolling motor out of the water?
He had his.
He probably did on a
he had
couple
his
spots.
Talons or Raptors down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lee, by the way. Just got himself another win.
Yeah, that's a lot of momentum right there, huh?
On the
Way to
open,
go, Lee.
you know, he dude's winning a lot fast.
I
If you
believe
look at
he
the last-
is.
If you look at the last few years, he's winning at a pretty incredible pace.
Yeah, he's doing well. I
And,
think he was
again,
Carolina.
this tournament in the open, little inside info. He has a seminar with us, stealth mode bass fishing. That played. Got it. What's that?
Talk to the people.
Oh, stealth mode bass fishing. We have that on Bass Shoot TV. That played last week for Lee. You know,
how
he's
so? He was Carolina rigging. What was he doing? That
I mean, he was doing a few different things, but
Yeah.
you know, he was 360ing an area off of his boat. You know, while he was locked down, and it was one of those deals where, you know, he caught the fish. He caught every fish in the area, and it was very similar to Chickamauga from reports that
Right.
you know he didn't catch everything that he could catch every day. He saved himself some fish. You know,
How about that?
Like one of the super unique things that he did at Chick was like during the tournament he was shaking fish off, and like apparently he did the same thing again. So that's
See, I think Lee has the ability to. He's a pretty big dude. I think he keeps people from fishing his area. I think it plays.
You think
Lab.
so?
I think it plays.
I
think it
don't know.
does.
I've been out there a long
Plus,
time.
he's friends with the Canadians, and everybody knows they're.
Brian, have you ever
they're
had a
just
run
wild
on
and
the
crazy.
water?
Yes. Have you?
No, we're not really. Maybe one time so far in the Elite Series. but
Wait, what?
I asked Brian if he had any problems in the water because he keeps backtracking to this problem.
He just loves that.
Hold on,
he loves that
listen,
story of
hold
the
on.
bully.
You guys are here to
Time out.
teach people how to fish, and I'm here to
Brian.
bring another element.
Brian.
Everybody provides their part. Peanut butter, jelly, bread. Yeah, you
Brian,
know what I mean?
did you get
it's all
bullied?
just peanut butter. What do
Did
we
you get-
got?
Did you get bullied?
No.
What was his name?
Hell no.
It was her name.
Who? That guy?
Whoever.
No, I'm good. I'm all right.
Still haven't seen the name of this.
I
thing.
know.
We might have to go to
If
play.
Wait a
somebody
minute.
gets this, I'll be
Wait a minute.
amazed.
We had to go through a show. We had to call it because what was it? The last show or the one
No, it
before
was
that?
Pangrac. Why
Pangrac.
was he called the
Yeah.
Nature Boy?
Yeah, that one didn't get.
And we ended up doubling down and giving away a hydro wave. So
So, guys, this is a tube. It's about a 4-inch tube. It's got a meaty head to it. Nice meaty head. You can't really see any detail because of the lighting, but it's also got gills. All right, gills. A tube with gills. Mud puppy-ish. Okay?
Mud puppy.
Run with that for a second.
You know, Pete, going back to what you're saying, I've never Carolina rigged for a spawning fish, but that gives you the hesitation because you're like, does he got it? You know,
it's
swimming
automatic.
around.
You're right.
Yep. Yep.
It gives you that delay.
Yep.
Automatic.
Yep.
It worked when it was working. It worked like a charm. When Kobe was like, he was in the corner of this building over there, and my boat. I had to get on the bank, like I said, but I don't think I really described this. But by getting on the bank, I think I disturbed the fish, maybe made them more aggressive, or presented my bait more parallel to the bank, or got to hit nests or beds that I wasn't hitting.
Yep.
But for I don't know half a dozen casts, it was like I was locked up, man.
A parallel makes sense if you think about it. You're covering like the good area like consistently versus casting and pulling.
Right. There was definitely something to that for just a little while.
So them fish in there, were they how far off the bank were the majority of the fish? Let's say you had a low tide scenario. How far are they from the bank?
At a low tide, man, I think they were about 2 feet from the low tide mark. So they were close. They were close at low tide, but I wasn't at low tide. Right, it was high, so I was sitting on top of them. You know what I mean? They were because that low tide mark is where they were doing their deal.
Yep.
You know, and it worked. I thought it was really going to play a big factor, but like I said, I didn't get the rhythms of the tides until we were in the middle of the tournament, and but it was a fun tournament. You know,
Yeah.
I missed that fog delay. Did you? You ran down. Of course, that hurt.
I had last flight that day, so
didn't
I
bother
actually
you
I was actually happy we had a fog delay because I was like, man, a lot of these guys are going to spin out.
Yeah.
Which day two, the weights were way lower.
They definitely were.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we had an hour and a half sitting in the fog.
Yep.
That's a pretty major delay.
Yep.
Riz, why don't you rack up the Facebook like and share?
All right. Tonight's Facebook like and share winner is Jeffrey Young. Congratulations, Jeffrey Young. I will send you a DM requesting your information. And we also do have a backup plan for the grand prize. We're not seeing the right answer coming through. So we can either double it up into next week, or we can go to question B.
Oh, big clue.
Hellabass said Lee's on the baby pattern.
Might be.
Another baby pattern.
But he did have 2 wins
prior to.
Yeah, but still.
It's a good
Now
pattern.
he's on a tear, man. Homeboy wins.
Yeah, no doubt. And the thing is, once you
does what
I've
he
seen
does,
it,
you know,
you win. Once you get over that win, it's like hitting the baseball. You know what I mean? Once you get in gameplay and you start cracking that ball, now you can do it. You know, and it seems like that confidence is hard to come by, but once you get over that hump and get that win, here he goes. I mean, he just keeps stepping in the winner's line now.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Yes, he do. Nobody.
Still nothing.
Still nothing.
What do you think? Double it down or go to the question B?
I think this is a Kobe prize. He's on the guest. I think we give away a prize tonight.
Okay. All right.
Faux show.
Okay, so we're going to a secondary trivia question, guys, tonight. What was the name of Pete's rig of choice on the James River that was previously named by Mike Iaconelli? What was the name of Pete's rig of choice on the James River that was previously named by Mike Iaconelli?
I don't think I named it.
Well, it was previously named something else, but Pete renamed it.
What did Pete throw and then tried to name himself after himself or something?
Well, I got the answers coming in. That's not the right answer. Not the right answer. Uh-oh.
It's going to be
Tricky,
coming out.
tricky.
I filmed a seminar.
Oh, I need the
on
full.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Coach P.
Coach P.
Coach P is always on an absolute tear. That guy stays dialed. He's focused. The fat baby.
The fat baby.
baby rig. That's
we
right.
We were laughing so hard when we figured out that that's what we were going to call it. We were like, this is the greatest name ever. But the Fat Baby seminar and how I use it, how I rig it, or it's going to be released soon on Bash University TV, so look for that. And thank you for those. Coach, you're getting $100 worth of V&M baits. How cool is that? What was the name of the tube?
Tubo.
The Tubo.
The Tubo.
By Mr. Twister.
Mr. Twister. Wow.
That's not a real bass bait. That's why.
Why not?
I'm just saying, Mr. Twister.
It's kind of dope, dude. What's wrong with it?
No offense.
Mr. Twister's having a comeback.
They are. Slowly.
Yeah.
If not.
Slowly.
Greg's not giving you any love. Not even an inch. But that's all right. Hey, we appreciate you, GDP, for being with us tonight. Appreciate all your sarcastic comments towards me.
That's all I got, Pete. I ain't going to tell nobody how to catch them. I'll be honest. I'll be honest here.
Riz, as always,
I know my spot.
Great job. And appreciate all you guys watching. Get over to BashU.TV, and get yourself subscribed. And look for some amazing releases coming this week. Bill Lowen is going to be our latest releases dropping
today.
Drop today.
Yep.
And Bill is an amazing angler. He will catch them everywhere he goes, and he's one of our favorite instructors, most viewed because he's such a good teacher and keeps it simple and helps everybody catch more fish.
Good interview tomorrow as well with Justin Atkins about the power of scent.
The power of scent.
Yeah, there's
talked about that tonight.
There's some good stuff in there. So.
Absolutely. And we will be back here next week. We'll keep you posted on the Bash University Live.
Maybe Lee.
Maybe Lee Livesey. Would you guys like that? We would.
I would.
Hey,
no? Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Have a great night. I'm Pete Gluzek for Bash University. Have a great night.
Peace.
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 Mike Iaconelli, this is Bash U TV. Here's what's awesome about Bash U TV.
You get the top instructors.
You will learn things at Bash U that you will learn nowhere else.
And we help you build confidence with new techniques.
We take the mystery and the myths
out of bass fishing.
Real tools that help you catch more fish consistently.
At Bass U TV, shoes are optional.
And I like turtles.
We teach you to enjoy bass fishing.
And that's why you want to check out Bass U TV.
Join the Bass U family.
Welcome to Bass U TV.